Hi, this is Raven Dana, and thanks for joining me here again at Walking Between the Worlds. This is the third and final class of Bee Magic. It is November 1st. I can't believe October's gone. If it looks like I've been out in the wind, it's because I have. So, mostly what we're going to talk about tonight are all of the different medicinal properties of not just honey, but the other things that bees make. And we're going to start with this book. I just want to point this out to you right here. If you have never seen it, never heard of it, yes, The Mind of a Bee. It is actually quite remarkable. It's a remarkable book. I'm not even finished with the book. I just got it a couple of days ago, but I will read you some things from this book today to get us going and to get us thinking about bees in a yet another layer of awareness. Beyond and above and beyond what I've told you so far. I am really thrilled to have that book, and think it's going to bring a lot to the party. I might actually talk about it a little bit in a follow-up meeting about the bee class. So, bees, this is what this person has done tremendous research on the consciousness of bees, and here's what we know. They understand the concept of zero. They can do simple math. They do recognize faces, and probably other bee faces too, not just ours. When they're successfully foraging, they're considered to be optimistic. It has to do with the sound that they put out. But bees can actually become depressed. Their sound changes. If, for example, they're momentarily trapped by, say, a predatory spider. But even when a bee escapes the spider, her demeanor changes, and she's edgy and making, clearly something's off, and she's looking over her shoulder, literally and figuratively, for a period of time after. So, Lars Chitka, who is a cognitive scientist at Queen Mary University of London, he's the person whose lab has carried out many, many studies about bees. And he says, ultimately, bees may have the brain the size of a poppy seed, but they are capable to pick out individual features on human faces and recognize them during repeated interactions. We can see that bees are likely to not only have some version of emotions, but actually sentience, consciousness. Pretty interesting, right? Not unusual considered what we've been learning about bees. There's nothing on the planet like a bee. There's nothing on the planet like a bee. They are both individual organisms and one aspect of the organism, which is the hive or the colony. The shape. We didn't talk too much about the shape of a hexagon, but it's not only the best way for them to store honey, it is a very prominent shape in nature. The hexagon is the strongest shape known in nature, and it's something that can hold tremendous weight given its size. Hexagonal patterns are prevalent in nature due to their efficiency, and they're found in sacred geometry in the flower of life, and they're found in ancient architecture in the world. Honeycombs, snowflakes, the eyes of many insects, minerals, benzene. There are many compounds and minerals which have that particular shape. And again, it's a sacred geometry shape, the strongest holding container in nature. And of course, I think it's very interesting that when we talk about putting a hex on somebody, right, a hexagram, putting a hex, this is the strongest container in nature. I don't think that that's a mistake or an accident that a hex as a container has this particular connotation or shape. Okay. Another bit of history about bees is that they are the symbol for the Greek goddess Athena, the virgin huntress and guardian of wild nature. And also, a fun fact that I didn't know is that even in Christian tradition, the Virgin Mother, Mary, is called the Queen of the Bees. I didn't know that. That was interesting to discover. Persephone is often called the honeyed one, and bees, she says, know all of the secret entranceways to the underworld. Beekeepers, by the way, tend to have pretty long lifespans, and the theory is that it has something to do with, well, they have a certain respective nature typically. They also get stung occasionally, which is quite good for you, as it turns out. And the sound that happy bees make is very good for us humans. It quiets the mind and soothes the nervous system. So a person spending a lot of time around bees, eating honey, right? Eating the products of the hive, relating to bees, listening to their song, and being more at one with nature, I think that's a pretty good argument for why they might actually live longer. Yeah. So I like that. I like the idea that the reason why they live longer is because, well, they eat honey, they're calmer, and they relate to nature in a particular way. So, all right. Oh, another thing about the studies done on honeybees is that it was discovered that they can detect certain illnesses, and in some cases even detect illness in advance of the tests. Then they do this by smelling. It's the scent of their sense of smell that through which they pick up the change in chemistry. And this is also how when sometimes people will tell you when you approach a hive to calm down, to get relaxed, to approach with some respect. Bees, again, can smell you. And so if you are agitated or upset or frightened, it might put them in a state of being wary or being agitated. And so again, not good for you, not good for the bees. In the mind of a bee, Lars Chitka draws from decades of research, including his own pioneering work, and he argues that bees have absolutely remarkable cognitive abilities. He shows that they are not only profoundly smart, but that individual bees have distinct personalities. They can recognize not only human faces, but also specific flowers, that they have emotions, that they use simple tools, that they solve problems, and that they are keen observers of others. Okay, taking the readers deep into the world and the mind of a bee, Chitka illustrates how bee brains are unparalleled in the animal kingdom in terms of how much sophistication is placed in their nervous systems. Okay. All right, bee medicine. So we're going to talk about some of the different things that the bees make and that the bees use for their own well-being, and how important some of those things are, and how long we humans have tapped into that knowledge and tapped into the use of some of these things for our own well-being. The first thing I'll talk about is pollen, the bee pollen. When pollen that is collected is mixed together with saliva and nectar, it becomes something called bee bread, right? So it's carried back to the hive where it's stored in the hive's comb to ferment. And the fermented version of the bee pollen, known as bee bread, is what's fed to the small bees as they're growing. So it's not the first food they eat. Remember, the first food they eat is the royal jelly, but it's what replaces the royal jelly for those bees not destined to be queens. And bee bread is also fed to the rest of the members of the hive, right? So bee pollen, you know, those little nuggets, colorful nuggets that you see, bee pollen contains over 250 different biological substances. The exact nutrient composition depends on the different flowers and plants, of course, but there aren't as many studies about bee bread or bee pollen as there are about other things. What we do know about bee pollen is that it can act to reduce allergy, but that it can also trigger allergy. So to use bee pollen, one takes it in very, very small amounts, tiny amounts. Bee pollen may also help to lower heart disease risk factors. It might lower bad cholesterol. Animal studies have shown that it does in fact decrease allergic responses. However, that's only when it's taken in small doses over a period of time, which helps the system to cope with allergens. Okay. Studies show that that bee pollen also does have an effect on menopausal symptoms. So this is one thing that's not mentioned anywhere else with any of the other bee products. But the pollen, bee pollen, is said that in 65% of women during studies using bee pollen, that all of the menopausal symptoms were reduced. So including hot flashes, night sweats, improved mood, improved quality of energy, all of those things changed when using the bee pollen. Okay. Royal jelly is the next thing we'll talk about. It is secreted from the glands of the nurse bees, from the hypopharynx, and it's used to feed all the larvae in the colony. And in the case of maturing queens, that's all they eat. They don't switch to the pollen, to the bee bread. And of course, the queens continue to eat the royal jelly. It resembles yogurt or custard. It's a whitish substance. As it is produced, the worker bees will either feed it to the developing eggs or directly to the queen as food. Now, the thing about royal jelly, because it's such a big deal and it's used in different products, it's used in makeup, it's used for hair, it's used for skin, but the thing about it is that you want to know that thousands of larvae that were destined to become queens are killed in order to harvest the royal jelly. So again, while it's a thing and it's useful, it's good to be mindful of what's happening in the harvesting of some of these products. Okay, royal jelly, both orally and topically, can support wound healing and other inflammatory skin conditions. Now, one thing that it is tremendously good for is burns. It's very healing and soothing and antibacterial for burns. It's known for its antibacterial effect, which can keep wounds not only free and clear from infection, but also moist so that they don't scab and peel and that sort of thing. So royal jelly is used in a wide variety of products, and generally speaking, by people who are bee friendly, it is not recommended that you buy makeup and hair products that contain royal jelly because of the way it's harvested. So it's food for thought there. Now, wax. When honeybees are between 12 and 20 days old, they develop a special wax-producing gland in their abdomen. Bees then will huddle together to increase their temperature, and that enables the wax glands to activate. And when that happens, it will convert sugar from the honey into beeswax, which oozes then through the small pores on the abdomen of the bee, like little scales. And those scales then are pulled off, and they're used for very specific things, right? So during peak wax production, a healthy worker bee can produce about 8 scales of wax in 12 hours. Now, think about it. It's a bee. The scales are tiny. The bee colony requires about 1,000 wax scales to make up a gram of beeswax. So, right, the honeycomb is built of wax. Think about how much wax is in a comb. I mean, just think about it for a second. 1,000 wax scales to make a single gram of beeswax for the comb. It takes 29 pounds of nectar or 8 pounds of honey to produce 1 pound of wax. Like, wow, right? It takes a hive between 2 weeks and 2 months to produce the honeycomb required to store enough honey to feed the colony through the winter. Pure beeswax has an almost indefinite shelf life. Samples, which are thousands of years old, have been tested and found to have almost identical properties as fresh beeswax. It's used in aromatherapy. It's used in candle making. It has a long, slow, clean burn. It not only exudes the aroma of honey, but it also produces the elimination, some chemicals that facilitate the elimination of airborne pollutants. And it also, the scent, promotes overall calm in the nervous system of humans. Used cosmetically, beeswax hydrates, conditions, soothes, and calms the skin. It exfoliates, repairs damage, and promotes skin regeneration. But again, used medicinally, beeswax will help soothe and facilitate the healing of abrasions. So it's another really good tool to use during certain kinds of wound healing that don't respond to other things. So bandages infused with beeswax are also something that's used in certain types of wound healing. It does also prevent harmful bacteria from entering the body through chapped or broken skin when it's rubbed, and it provides the skin with a layer of protection against irritants. It is antioxidant and anti-inflammatory, and these properties benefit those who suffer from topical allergies or ailments, such as eczema or rosacea. So it's again quite remarkable, just the wax itself. But that fact about what it takes, 8 little scales from one bee takes them hours and hours to make, and how much honey is required for the bees to make a pound of wax. It's just amazing. It's absolutely, utterly amazing. All right, propolis. It is often referred to as bee glue. All right, it's what's used by honeybees to plug the gaps in the hive. Bees, first of all, how they make it is they take beeswax, saliva, and the resins that they collect from certain plants, particularly pine tree sap. It consists of about 300 compounds comprised of resins and vegetable balsams, flower oils, pollen, and wax. It can be used to close the hive entrance in winter. It can be used to insulate. It is used to insulate the hive and also to soundproof the hive. And if something gets in the hive that is a potential threat and the bees kill it, it's too big for them to get out, to push out, then they'll use the bee glue to create a container around it so that it doesn't rot and infect, the rest of the hive. It not only maintains the physical structure of the hive, but it's also known to reduce, again, sound. It reduces vibration coming from the outside. Bees that are resin users tend to be middle-aged worker bees, so between 14 and 24 days old. Once they pass through the different spectrums of their work life. They start out as nurse bees, and then they are producing propolis, or bee glue, and then they commence their role as foraging workers. And now after they're foraging workers, then they're on the older side, and that's when they come back to be the maidens of the queen, right? The queen's retinue. So here's the thing about bee glue. It's great stuff. It is a natural antibiotic. It protects the bees against viruses, fungi, and bacteria, among other things. It's used to close unwanted cracks and openings in the hive and coat the walls. The Greek name propolis means for the city, and its use was recommended by clients precisely because of its protective effect. So the bees make a lot of this stuff, and it's all over the inside of the hive for a variety of different uses. So in ancient times, propolis has been used by humans, especially to treat, let's go all the way back to Egypt. The Egyptians used bee glue to help embalm the cadavers. The Greeks and Romans used it as a mouthwash, a mouth disinfectant, and an antiseptic for wound treatment. It was listed as an official drug in the London Pharmacopoeia of the 17th century due to its antibacterial activity. And in Europe, it became very popular between the 17th and 20th centuries. Propolis is the wax actually used by Stradivari to wax the Stradivarius violins. Pretty interesting, right? It is currently used as an antimicrobial for the treatment of flu-like infections, respiratory tract infections, common cold, treatment of burns, acne, herpes, and neurodermatitis. So it's got quite a range of practical uses. So again, bee glue, propolis. It is the sticky substance that the bees use to hold things in place, to repair things, very useful to humans. Now we come to honey, of course, honey. So how it's made. Well, maiden bees collect, then regurgitate the nectar. It is passed back and forth between worker bees until the water content is reduced to 18%. Once that water level comes down, then mold and bacteria cannot grow, and the nectar becomes honey, which the worker bees then push into the cells of the honeycomb for storage. Honey has a very powerful therapeutic role. Honey has been known since ancient times to be the food of the gods because of its tremendous benefits. Daily consumption of honey has a beneficial effect on the level of antioxidant compounds in the body. It effectively fights excess cholesterol. Research shows that the antioxidants contained in honey prevent arteries from narrowing. It also has strong antibacterial and antifungal properties. Studies suggest that honey offers use as an antidepressant, an anticonvulsant, and it has anti-anxiety benefits. In some studies, honey has also been shown to improve or increase memory. Right? This is just, again, but when we talk about honey and using honey and eating honey in these applications, we're not talking about, that icky honey that you get in the grocery store, cheap in the squeegee bottle, which is basically, it's been cooked, all the enzymes have been killed. We're not talking about that stuff. When we talk about honey in this medicinal context, we're talking about raw, unfiltered honey. Honey that has not been heated up to 120 degrees to help it to pour. Honey that contains all of the active enzymes and properties. Natural raw honey is it can be on the cloudy side, and that's fine because it still contains little bits of wax and other things in there. So when we talk about utilizing raw honey for our purposes of any of these healing activities, this is what we're talking about. So here are the things that the studies show that honey is useful for. Weight management, strengthening the immune system, nourishing to the skin, boosts memory. It's a good remedy for coughs. It's a natural home remedy for dandruff. It's good for eye problems. Yes, that was another thing in ancient times, that honey was used as an eye, for if you had an eye infection, you put honey on it, and that would help that as well. It's used for healing wounds. It's used for coating burns, and it's used as a natural sleeping aid. So honey is, the bee's knees. Honey is the best things. It's before sliced bread, right? Honey is remarkable stuff, and a lot of the benefits that we have talked about previous to our conversation about honey, benefits that we see from bee bread and from the wax and from the propolis and all this, all of those things are also attributed to the honey. And I mention it for the specific reason that of all of the things we can harvest from the bees, honey is the least detrimental to the hive itself. Because if we harvest the honey and leave enough for the colony to make it through the winter, that's what they need to eat their own honey for the winter, then they just carry on and they have a nice life and they do their thing and they make more little baby bees and they swarm and create a new colony and they begin again. So if we're again conscious of interacting in the best interest of nature and the bees, there's no problem with harvesting honey as long as we do it in a way that is sound and bee-centric. Some of these other things that they do, not so much. It's harder. The bee glue, there's, like I said, it's not as big a deal because they do coat and they do these things with the bee glue. But some of the other things, when you're talking about harvesting royal jelly, it's, think about what it takes to harvest royal jelly when one or two little containers of that royal jelly takes so much to make. So anyway, you understand what I'm saying exactly. You get the point. Now, here's the thing that we don't think very much about. Venom. The venom of a bee sting, unless you're allergic to bee stings, in which case it can kill you. But for an ordinary person that's not allergic to bee venom, the occasional sting is actually not a bad thing. There are distinct benefits to the use of bee venom. So the medicinal use of bee venom dates back to ancient Egypt and is reported even in the history of Asia and Europe. Hippocrates used bee venom to treat joint pain and arthritis. Okay? It is one of the most precious gifts the bees have given us. It can be helpful in the treatment of a wide range of diseases and illnesses. It is a very complex composition of chemicals, and it has significant bioactivity. The peptides in bee venom, which if you're a nerd and you'd like to know, they're adolapine, melittin, apamin, and peptide 401. They have undergone extensive testing and research. Venom is not detectable at the time of emergence of the first female honeybees. Instead, it increases very quickly over the next few days of the bee's life, and then it remains consistent for 14 days, and then slowly begins to drop. Therefore, older honeybees produce less poison in their sting than younger ones. The venom's composition changes throughout the life of the bee. And remember that bees generally have a lifespan of about 45 days. The alarm pheromone message conveyed by bee venom to other bees activates them to defend the hive. So if a bee comes to the door of the hive and there's a predator, say there's a mouse there, and there's a guard bee, there's a bee that comes and stings the predator, the pheromone that the stung bee releases tells the hive we're in danger, and it activates their desire to protect and defend. Another reason why going into bee territory and staying calm and relaxed is a good thing, because what you don't want to do is trigger their desire to defend, right? They don't do it, they're not going to just fly at you and sting you. That's a myth. That doesn't happen. It's not real. And there are plenty of great images online, if you look, of people barehandedly moving swarms of bees off of places where they landed into a bee box or into a container. So I just want you to understand that unless you're allergic to bees, you're not going to be stung a whole bunch of times. And if you get stung once or twice in your lifetime, not a bad thing. The bee venom has some great benefits. Bee venom has traditionally been used to treat inflammatory diseases such as rheumatism. However, it can also be used in the treatment of neurological disorders, including things like asthma and cancer, infectious diseases such as malaria. It has high antioxidant activity. It is antimicrobial. It is antiviral. Bee venom contains at least 4 substances that have strong anti-inflammatory properties. Interesting, right? Since you're getting stung, and clearly the sting site is going to turn red and hurt and swell, but the venom itself, as it moves into your body, has all of these positive effects. It reduces neuroinflammation. It is also anti-tumoral. It balances blood pressure. It reduces high blood pressure. It also reduces pain and fever. Who knew, right? So between honey and bee venom, why am I saying venom? I have no idea. Between the honey and the bee venom, we have quite the gift basket of healing available to us. And again, it's not, it's something to think about because of the way the venom is collected. Now, the good news is they don't generally go about killing off a bunch of bees. How they do collect it, however, is by having the bees cross an electric plate where there is a slight charge, an electric charge, and they will sting the plate. Doesn't rip their bodies out, their stinger doesn't go through the plate, but the venom then drops below the screen into a collection area. It doesn't kill the bees, but God knows, I'm sure it's not much fun either. But that's how it works, and it takes about 2 hours of collection to produce 1 gram of venom. The good news is it doesn't take much venom in a human to do some good. Here are some of the other things that it treats: asthma and arthritis. In addition to treating traditional musculoskeletal illnesses such as arthritis and rheumatism, therapeutic uses extend well into the gray areas, as in the case of new studies that now suggest bee venom is an excellent supplemental for the treatment of COVID-19. Who knew? I mean, here I just discovered that I have long COVID. So I don't know, should I go stand outside and invite a bee to sting me? Maybe that's a good idea. I've never been stung by a bee. I've been stung by a wasp. That wasn't fun. But I've never been stung by a bee. So back to bee venom. Cancer. Several compounds in bee venom have anti-tumoral action. Not only are they anti-tumoral, but they also they stop the activity of the cancer cells. So it prevents the proliferation of cancer. It's amazing. This stuff's amazing. Bee venom is also known to quiet the gut, especially during issues that are inflammatory. So the disorders linked to inflammation, such as genetic ulceration, colitis, liver issues, quiets everything down. Bee venom is also good for soothing kidney issues. The kidneys benefit from bee venom. And neurological disorders are treated with bee venom. The current research is specifically looking at Parkinson's, neuropathy, and MS. Again, bee venom. All right. The potential health benefits of honey, such as microbial inhibition, wound healing, and its effects on other diseases, are well known. Propolis has some health benefits related to gastrointestinal disorders, allergies, and dermatological problems. Royal jelly is known for its protective effects on reproductive health, neurodegenerative disorders, wound healing, and aging. Venom is well known to treat many different issues, including neurological disorders, digestion, inflammatory issues, and it is also anti-tumoral. Nevertheless, even with all of the tremendous research, and there's lots of research, there are so many papers. If you're again science nerdy kind of person and you want to look at the research, it's out there. There are hundreds and hundreds of papers. And with all the research and with all the statistics and all the studies, here's the scientific conclusion is this: the exact mechanisms of the actions of honey, propolis, royal jelly, and venom are not fully known, and they are not understood. We know they work. We don't know how exactly. We know kind of how because of some of their characteristics, but it's more of a synergy. It's certain things being brought together that create all of these effects from these substances, particularly honey and bee venom. So here are two sites that you can look at. GaiaBees.com, GaiaBees, GaiaBees.com, and BioBees, BioBees, BioBees.com for more information. Well, it has been quite the adventure being in bee land with you. I hope these medicinal properties have given you some place to play. I would suggest that you get some raw honey and that you do a little reading about what you can, how you can use it. Again, a teaspoon or two in the morning and a teaspoon or two at night is a good place to start. I know it seems like a lot, but it is the recommendation. If you read this book, The Song of Increase, it will give you some information about that. And if you read, here's another book, The Honey Prescription. All right, The Honey Prescription. So this is something else. This guy, Nathaniel Altman, is a medical writer and researcher who's written more than 15 books on alternative healing. And so he says quite a bit of things about honey, how to use it, what it's good for. So again, if you want to take your research further and do some more play in this area on your own, then this would be another good book to get. And the only thing I'd ask again is to be mindful of the products that you're using and where you get them from, so that the bees are treated with a measure of kindness and respect in gathering and in using their all their good things that they put out into the world. When I finish this other book about the consciousness of bees, I promise I'm going to come back on and do a little chat about it, because it's just amazing to me. The research and reading and study about the bees has really, shifted me a little bit more in that direction of being so overly cautious of what human beings do to the natural world. I had no idea about all the different things that were being done to bees and how not good that is for us humans and for our environment and for, of course, the bees themselves. Why do we have to mess with things? So it's yet another, somehow the conversation in my mind has come back around to the distinction between having power over something or having the power to connect with something, right? It's that model of relating the patriarchy, which is power over things, creating an atmosphere of submission, creating a model of story in which nature is a resource for humans to use, or instead of that, we have a choice that we can be partners. We can be equal partners with nature, because we are equal. We are in nature and it is in us. We are not separate. We do not have dominion. If worse comes to worse, nature will take us out of the equation for a while, hit the pause button on the human race and, bring them back in hopefully a little kinder, wiser form. So, again, it's not nice to fool Mother Nature. We sometimes come to believe that it is our right to dominate other species, and it is not our right. We come to do it, and it often comes back to bite us. So if this class does nothing else than help you to think more in a way that allows you to integrate your life better, more effectively, with more consciousness and respect into the natural world around you, then that would make me very happy. If this class helps you to be kinder to the bees and sends you out to find raw honey and stops you from using products that harm the bees, that would make me happy too. Again, I'm always interested in any thoughts you have and what you might say and opinions you have. If you have a question and I can't answer it, I'll see if I can get the answer for you. I'm all in this subject. I'm going to continue reading because it has really captured me. And here's my little bee. I've always had a fondness for bees. I'm always that person that can put out their hand and get a bee to land and then take it away from the person that's frightened. I've always been able to get bees out of a house. I can even get wasps out of a house. The wasp that bit me, I sat on, right? So it was totally my fault. So I just want to say in ending that it is an absolutely remarkable thing what a colony does in order to survive in this world. It's utterly remarkable that the bees are beings that live between the worlds. They see what we can't see. They have a relationship to the sun that's incredibly and powerfully magical. And I do believe strongly that if we spent more time around bees, if we spent more time studying some aspect of nature, if we had a beehive we could go stand around and listen to for a while, it would make us better human beings. We might be a little kinder to each other as we come to know how the bees work together, both as individuals and as one mind for the well-being of all. And that's the thought I'm going to leave you with. I hope you've enjoyed the class, and there will be meditations coming up, and I'll see you next time. Have a wonderful, wonderful time. Bye now. Thank you for joining me at Walking Between the Worlds. This was the third and final class of the series on bee magic. Bye now.